Hello, my name is Todd Baginski. I'm an 11-time SharePoint MVP and a partner and CTO at my company Canvas. In this training module, I'm going to show you how to get started with the SharePoint Framework. This is section 3 of the Getting Started with the SharePoint Framework training module. In this section, I will discuss the Office UI Fabric React components. In this section, we're going to discuss what are the Office UI Fabric React components, show you a tour of the available components, at least some of them, how to get started, and how to use the Office UI Fabric React components in a SharePoint Framework web part. Office UI Fabric's robust, up-to-date components are built with the React framework. You can look through the component list to see the building blocks that are available using Fabric React. Fabric's components help you get buttons, navigation, and more that look like Office quickly and easily. They also contain extra functionality that helps your app act like Office too. Many Fabric React components are used in Microsoft products. They make improvements and bug fixes frequently, ensuring the work as designed across all of the supported browsers. After you've explored all the components, you can easily get started developing them by going to dev.office.com/fabric-/components or /get-started. The Office UI Fabric project is developed and maintained by the OneDrive and SharePoint Design Studio for the following reasons. To help the development community build Office add-ins and Office 365 web apps that integrate seamlessly with Office, to provide a point of reference for evolving Office 365 design language that anyone can reference, and to enable the community to contribute to better experiences for everyone who builds them for Office. I can tell you firsthand that my team and I have actually submitted commits and pull requests to this repository for some of these components to actually better them for the community, just like it says in the third bullet point. We found a bug in one of them in the persona card, and we fixed that, submitted the PR, and now nobody will run into that bug again. You can also enhance what is there as well and submit that to see if the team would like to take that enhancement and add it to the component too. Now, Fabric and its sub-projects all depend on the Fabric core. These are the core elements of the design language, including icons, colors, type, and the grid. Inside of that, or I should say underneath of the core, you have all the different component projects. You have components for React, some that work for just straight up JavaScript with no framework, some that work for Angular, and then you also have components that you can use in iOS. Microsoft releases changes to the design language, components, and other assets frequently, and will make these updates available to the community. If features are deprecated, Microsoft notes that in the changelog, and the feature will be removed from the next major release. Here you can see a link to the changelog where you can learn about what's changing in Office UI Fabric React, as well as how you can contribute in the GitHub repository. Components are the building blocks, and they are all built responsibly. You have inputs that you can use, such as button, text fields, drop-downs, and checkboxes. Some of those are shown here. You have different pickers you can choose from. You can pick from dates, people, tags, documents, and colors. You have different layouts you can use, such as command bars, dialogues, contextual menus, callouts, and panels. You also have controls that you can use for content and people, such as lists, personas, and face piles. Finally, you have informational components, such as a progress indicator, a spinner, and a message bar. You can browse all of the available React components by going to dev.office.com/fabric-/components. This is what that website looks like. allows you to click on each one, learn about them, see the code that you use to implement it, and actually take a tour of it inside of the web page so you can see if it's going to fit your needs. The code for these components is all on the Office UI Fabric developer site. There is also a Getting Started guide out there and the open source GitHub repository where you can look at all that code to ramp up on how to use it and get it for your own use and your own components. So how do you go about using Office UI Fabric React components? It's pretty simple. First, you install the Fabric React npm package. You can see the command that does that here. After you've done that, you then import the components into your web part. This import statement is pulling in the button and the button type components, and then you use those components in your render method. Here you can see the button and button type used to create the Add New Activity button you see at the bottom of the slide. To use type styles and icons, you can use type styles for text elements. Here you can see an example of the classes that have been applied to the span to create this activities with the bold text and the gray background. You can also see how icons are used. In this case, a contextual menu item icon has been created, and this one is used for sorting. You can also combine custom styles you create with Office UI Fabric styles inside of your SharePoint Framework web parts. In the top left portion of the page, you see the menu button and menu button I styles. These styles are custom styles that we created when we built this Opportunity Tracker SharePoint Framework web part that you're looking at in the main portion of the page. Down at the bottom of the page, you can see code that combines custom styles, menu button and menu button I, with the Office UI Fabric styles. Notice the class name is equal to curly brace CSS, open parentheses. Then you include the Office UI Fabric styles inside there. Then the next value you put in after the comma is styles dot whatever the name of your style is. So in this case, we used the styles dot menu button style along with the Office UI Fabric styles to style this particular button. Now I'm going to walk you through a demonstration of using React components inside of a SharePoint Framework web part. In this demo, I'm working with Exercise 2 under Module 6 Demos Exercise 2. You'll find this code in the GitHub repository with this training content. I'm going to show you how I built this web part in the right side here that uses Office UI Fabric React components to build this user interface. The first thing that I did was I added import statements from Office UI Fabric React for the different types of components I'm going to use in this web part. I have a button, button type, nav, panel, and panel type. The first thing I'd like to show you is how I created these buttons up top here and how I made the behavior so that when I click this primary button, it opens this alert and says you click the primary button. The first thing I'd like to call your attention to is after I did my import statement for button and button type, then I marked up my HTML to create the buttons using that React button component. So here you can see how I created the normal button, this one that is gray, and here's how I created the one that is my primary button. Notice my button type component right here, I selected primary, and that's what made it the blue color. I also have an on-click event handler assigned to this button. If I go to the definition for it here, you can see it simply fires an alert that says you clicked the primary button. So when I click it, there's my alert. There's no click event associated with the normal button, but you can see as I click it over and over here, it turns blue when I click it because that's part of the styling built in to that button with this React component. Now I'm going to continue to show you how I made the navigation elements here inside of our web part. To do this, I am using the React component for nav that I imported here at the top of the web part. The code that actually uses this React component can be found here inside of this nav element. This code uses the Office UI React Nav component to create my navigation menu. The links array defines the items in the navigation menu. Notice the links array contains other links that allow you to nest links. The name property for each item in the links array defines what's rendered in the web browser. The URL property defines the URL for the link. The icon class name and icon properties define the icons displayed next to the links, as you can see in the last two items in this list. The last item in the menu has an event handler assigned to the onClick event as well. You can see that event handler right here. So if we take a closer look at that one, just like I did in my other example, I'm firing an alert that says you click the edit button in navigation. So as you can see, with very little code that I have right here, I have a really nice robust menu here that allows me to expand and contract and click on things. And for example, when I clicked on home, I went to example.com and there it is. So if I reload that page, I can show you a couple of other things. For example, this is the one that says edit link. Notice the icon class name, ms-icon-edit. That's how I get that particular icon right there. If I have an onClick event, I simply register it with the onClick event, point it at the onClick handler, like I showed you before here. And now when I click the item that has the click event associated with it, you can see you click the edit button in navigation. So as you can see, creating yourself a menu with the Office UI Fabric React component nav is very easy to do. The final React component I'd like to show you inside of this web part is my Open Panel component here. Notice when I click on Open Panel, it opens a panel here which has a header and it also has some content inside of it. You'll also notice that the first time I loaded this page, the panel was not visible, but it only appeared like this when I click the button. So let's see how we build the panel. The first thing that I did was imported the panel and the panel type components from Office UI Fabric React. After I have them imported, I changed my constructor for the web part so it set the state of show panel equal to false. That's why you didn't see it when the web part loaded. To actually implement the panel, in my render method here, I created a div with the button that opens the panel, and here is my event handler that opens the panel, the show panel. It sets the state of show panel equal to true. I also have another one for close panel, which sets the state of show panel equal to false. Then I created the panel itself. This is the panel Office UI React component. This is where I say is open and I put the state of show panel in there to control its visibility. Here's where I use my panel type setting, where I said it is small fixed far. Mousing over that, you can actually see the definition for that and all of the different rendering information that goes into that. On dismiss, this is where I call the close panel.bind, and on dismiss is fired when I click the X in the top corner. Notice the header text says panel-small right aligned fixed. This is my header text where that is omitted. And then I have a span that I put inside of this panel right here where it says content goes here. So as you can see, you can nest any HTML elements or other Office UI Fabric React components inside of the panel as well. So it's very easy to make pop-ups, as you can see, and panels and position them where you like with hardly any code inside of a SharePoint Framework web part when you're using the Office UI Fabric React components. In this section, we talked about what are the Office UI Fabric React components, the components that are available to you as a developer, how to get started using them, and how to use the Office UI Fabric React components in a SharePoint Framework web part. You can learn more about SharePoint Framework and all the things we've talked about here in the SharePoint Patterns and Practices. You can get to this via the URL aka.ms/SharePointPNP. There's a ton of code samples and solutions, reusable components, a lot of guidance documentation, and also monthly community calls that you can watch here to learn all about the SharePoint Framework, SharePoint add-ins, Microsoft Graph, and Office 365 APIs.